My name is Dawn Hausmann. I live in Emmaus House. I'm actually the director of consecrated vocations for the Diocese of Lansing, and I am the house mother of a women's discernment house here in East Lansing. So one of the most interesting things about being a missionary in Bolivia was really to be able to enter into a whole new culture, a whole new way of life. One of the most uncomfortable things, but one of the most beautiful things, seeing that we all come from the same God, creator of us all, and we share in the same humanity, and we're made to give and receive love. And so even though we had language barriers and cultural barriers, to know that the missionaries who hardly even could speak Spanish, we could still share in that same way of communicating love in different ways, in body language, in smiles, in hugs, and receive another person where they're at. And in such a different culture of, the Bolivians living in these very, very poor conditions, but for us to be able to recognize we still all long for the same thing. And it's ultimately this yearning for God and yearning to be one family of God, of Christ. The most challenging thing being a missionary in Bolivia was definitely speaking Spanish and trying to communicate to another in a way that you haven't before, to really just be a beginner and almost like being a child learning a language, being uncomfortable, that humbling experience of, I wish I could share with you more of who I am. I wish I could share with you more of our culture and where I come from. And just be able to receive you more if I could only understand you, if I could only speak the same language. So that was one of the hardest things, and just truly being able to not see them as someone like they are just completely foreign to me, but to see them as my brother and sister in Christ. It was really a challenging thing because their way of living is very, very different from ours. The way they have their houses made of, sticks and mud sometimes, the way they have a whole family of 10 living in a little hut and eating really weird food, sometimes things that you don't want to eat, but they ask you to eat them and you receive them. And that's also receiving who they are when you say yes and you share in a meal. So that was definitely one of the most challenging things. When you speak of vocation, when I speak of vocation, I'm living out my baptismal call. I've been living as a single for 31 years now, and the Lord has blessed me being a missionary and doing beautiful things for Him, and being able to do a lot of work for the church, with the church, and share my life, and really to respond to our call as Christians to be loving and grow in holiness. But the greatest joy I'm seeing it has been the discernment of my permanent state of life. I'm not there yet. I've been feeling called to the vocation called consecrated virginity. And this vocation, it's sort of like being a religious sister, but living in the midst of the world and doing whatever ministry, mission the Lord has in mind for me. Waking up every day and saying to the Lord, what is it now that you want of me, and what do you want me to do? How do you want our day to look? And so it's radically living a life that people might think I'm crazy. You're going to be married to who? God, and live like everyone else in the world, but yet, of course, have a richer faith life, or grow in a richer relationship with God than the average person you probably do see on the street. Kind of like being a hermit in the midst of the world. But anyways, just growing in that love with God and journeying with Him, entrusting myself to Him, letting go of fears, receiving this call to give myself to Him and to His people in a really radical way in the call to consecrated virginity has been a great joy.